Okay, so Racy, welcome to Monster Boss, and we're doing a Monster Minute here today for Telefang, of which you're a big fan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, what makes Telefang stand out amongst the other Monster Collector games?
It's pretty interesting really because it came out obviously, and like right about after Pokemon did. It was clearly trying to sort of cash in on that like a Mon game kind of craze that was going on then. But unlike a lot of other games, I think it was honestly really unique. It was kind of a play on the Japanese Keitai culture that was really big then. It's like basically Japan had way better cell phones than like anybody else, and it was a big cultural thing. So somebody had the idea like, why don't we combine like monsters and cell phones because those are both really cool. And so you end up with this really weird, obscure Game Boy game where you're just calling monsters on cell phones, and they had to like come up with a plot where this makes perfect sense. And then, of course, it never got released outside of Japan, but somebody took it and bootlegged it and slapped the Pokemon title on it because they thought, well, that'll make it sell better. And so you end up with something very, very strange and unique in the end.
I see. So, I noticed immediately, even playing the bootleg as a kid after I downloaded it online, like many people did, that it had a really unique feel to it. There's a lot of profanity in that localization, but even that aside, it has a really cool, unique style that just feels so perfect on the Game Boy Color. Do you feel like that cell phone interconnectivity might have influenced and inspired what led to the features available in the Japanese Crystal version later?
I've wondered about that quite a lot because it did come out before Crystal. It was about around like Gold and Silver era, but just before Crystal. And like pre-release stuff on Telefang is pretty hard to find. Um, there was this monthly magazine called Comic Bomb Bomb that was released by Kodansha Publishing. They were one of the companies that was like instrumental in getting Telefang published. And so like their magazine, it was kind of the equivalent of like Koro Koro, where you'll see like pre-release Pokemon stuff is advertised in there. So they had a bunch of Telefang stuff, and very early stuff shows. I think they did intend to have actual cell phone compatibility with the games. It seems like that was something they planned early on, but kind of dropped. So it ends up being like the cell phone stuff is thematic. Like the games came with like a little blinky antenna that you can plug into your Game Boy and it will look like a phone, but literally all it does is blink. It doesn't have like any Wi-Fi or anything. So
Wow.
yeah, it's interesting. It's weird though because like the really early proto stuff shows an antenna coming directly out of the cart, like a little wire antenna. And I really wonder what that was for. It would be so interesting to actually know. But like it's 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 really interesting how they like utilize the phone like theme and stuff. Like your menu in game is your character's phone. You call your monsters through like your little contact book and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Right, right. So, even if they didn't have that feature, it sounds like they had a plan at some point or were right on the verge of it. So, I really wouldn't be surprised to hear that it did inspire Crystal, even though we don't know for sure how
Yeah.
that went. Okay, so what makes the die-hard fans stick to Telefang after all these years?
It's hard to say because very early on, like I mean, everybody pretty much found it through the bootleg, as you know. I'd originally found the bootleg, and I was like, well, this is clearly not Pokemon, but it's something. There's something here, and I want to know more about it because it's really weird and interesting. Like the monster designs are extremely unique. But like as I was searching, I couldn't find anything. There's no like fan sites. There's no like like collection of any information on this, so I started trying to dig it up myself, which that's not easy when you don't know Japanese or anything and you're just like digging at it yourself. So I started like doing fan art and stuff just because this is really cool and weird, and other people started seeing my stuff and being like, oh, fans exist, I'm a fan too. So they kind of just put together a community based on that, like just other people going, wow, people know what this is. And like over the years, a lot of the community has been focused heavily on like making a proper translation for the game because they really deserved it, because they honestly are extremely funny, interesting games, and it's going pretty well.
I remember back when a lot of information was just first available for the Pokemon Gen 1 and Gen 2 games in Japanese. You had all these people in the community that knew Japanese. You had people like Glitterberry that were translating all these articles. So it's really impressive to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really impressive to me that you guys built up this wiki, this knowledge base, without really knowing Japanese and kind of having to, read between the lines a bit and examine pre-release pictures, and I'm sure that maybe there's some stuff on the cutting room floor about the game.
Yeah, we found some very interesting stuff. Actually, so we only have like a couple of actual translators. A lot of the people in the community are like ROM hackers and stuff like that, or just very interested in code, because a lot of the patch stuff is like, we changed the font from full width to variable width, and that was a lot of code hack stuff.
Wow.
But while we're looking at the code and stuff, we found some very interesting things that were left in game and never implemented. Like, there are some like cutscenes and stuff that were never put into the games. They were in like took full advantage of the Game Boy Color graphics. And Telefang too, while we were looking at the script, there was a funny message that was something like, thanks for calling the support center. So we were like, what triggers this message? So out of curiosity, we went and looked up the actual company's old support phone number and input it in game, and it actually works.
Wow.
They implemented it as an Easter egg, and I think we might have been the first people to find it.
That's incredible. That's really cool. That must have been super exciting to plug in for the first time. And
yeah, it's so funny. It just shows this, you call it and this lady pops up and she's like, thanks for calling the support center. We can't give you any game tips, but we're glad you're having fun with it kind of message. And it was like, wow.
Wow. That's super amazing that you guys dug right in there. And I'm not sure what it is about the monster collecting community, and I don't know if it's ROMs or if it's the lack of localization for a lot of these titles, but I feel like every second person I speak to in this community, they are a programmer. They're like, oh yeah, I know ASM. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's super impressive.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at what you guys pull off.
I kind of like to say I'm an armchair programmer because I've always been really interested in coding, but I'm not that good at it. So I understand enough to know what people are talking about, but I couldn't like do it myself. So it's really fascinating to just spectate when people are like, oh, I'm going to dig into this part, and then find all kinds of crazy stuff. It's pretty great.
Well, I mean, as long as you get the programmer jokes, and you can kind of you can give someone a hard time about how they poorly made something, even if you couldn't do any better, like I do. That's key.
Yeah.
That's the best part about being a programmer.
Yeah.
All right. So back to Telefang. What in the community is the most fun? Like, what brings everyone together? Is it tournaments? What really gets everyone excited? What brings everyone together after all these years?
I would say it's definitely the work on the translation patch, because lots and lots of people have played the bootleg, and the majority of them still don't actually realize there was an original game behind it. I think a lot of people think it was made up like by scratch and just like had the Pokemon titles like slapped onto it. And it's funny when you start to explain to people like, no, this is an actual game. Like the plot this actually is the plot. Like people say, oh, it has like nonsense translations about curry. It's like, no, that was a major plot point. Curry is actually in the game. And like I had the opportunity to play it at Pokeathon for like 5 hours and explain the game, and people were really interested in it. Like, legitimately, it wasn't necessarily that, oh, it's a funny bootleg with weird text. It was like, this game is actually pretty cool and weird. So, like, giving it a proper, well, like, good localization that's accurate to the game and doesn't include all the glitches and stuff that the bootleg had is really good way to, like, present the game as it should have been to a wider audience who doesn't speak Japanese.
It's great that you guys are doing that. That's going to introduce a lot more people to it, I think. I mean, it's obviously still a niche community, but once that spreads out, that people can play the legit version, the version they can fully respect, and especially one that was made as such a labor of love by you guys and your whole community, is just great. And just even speaking to you right now about the game, I thought I knew a lot about it, but I'm learning even more just in this conversation. So it's really great that you did that charity event as well.
Yeah, that was really fun. And it's coming up again in April.
Oh, okay, great. We'll definitely have to share that out on the Monster Boss accounts and the Monster Group accounts. Yeah. So, Racie, you definitely have like an encyclopedia level knowledge of Telefang, and I understand that you're working on a monster collecting related project. I know you can't say much yet, but we definitely want to get you on to share a bit about that when the time comes. Do you know when that time might be, when you'd be able to share more?
I'm not certain yet. I would say sometime next year.
Are we talking early 2018, mid, late?
I'll see. There's some other stuff. There's some other stuff in the way first, but I've seen some interesting things just today actually, and so I'm hoping there'll be something I can say about it soon.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll definitely look forward to that. All right, Racie, thank you so much for filling us in on Telefang, telling us a little about it, giving us the rundown, dropping some really cool info. I hope that everyone out there listening takes the chance to check this out if they have the opportunity and follows along with this fan translation. And we'll definitely share out the charity event that Racie does in a few months, so you'll be able to see that on our Twitter and social media. Thanks for coming along for this chat today, Racie.
No problem. Thanks for having me.